Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. Amma ba'du, fa'uzu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Qala Allah ta'ala fil Quranil Hakim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. La tudrikuhul absar wa huwa yudrikul absar wa huwa al-latiful khabir. And that verse translates as follows: vision cannot comprehend him. Him is Allah here. Vision cannot comprehend him, and he comprehends all vision, and he is the knower of subtleties, the aware, the one who is aware. Chapter 6, verse 103. And another verse is Fatirus samawati wal arz jala lakum min anfusikum azwajum wa min al-anami azwaja yazra'ukum fihi laysa kamislihi shay' wa huwa as-sami'ul basir. And the translation of that is, the originator of the heavens and the earth, he has made for you pairs from among yourselves, and pairs of the cattle also, in other words, animals, multiplying you in that way. Nothing is like him, and he is the hearing, the seeing. Chapter 42, verse 11. A few days ago, someone sent me a question about the first verse that I've recited. And this gave me the opportunity to look further into its meaning. But before I deal with that, I would like to point out that certain religions are regarded as teaching a deep and subtle philosophy consisting of fine and delicate notions. A philosophy so deep that a person needs to have considerable intellectual ability to understand that philosophy. And these religions are generally said to be the Christian, Hindu, and Buddhist religions. At the same time, it is alleged about Islam that the spiritual concepts which Islam presents, such as its concept of God and the hereafter, it is alleged that these are meant for the crude, simple, and uneducated minds who cannot think very deeply. And it is also claimed that whereas the religions I mentioned earlier, whereas they appeal to and attract the higher thinking people, Islam appeals to worldly minded people who can only think about physical things, and they can't think about anything higher than that. However, if you examine the concept of God as presented in the Quran, in the above verses, and also in other verses, you find that that concept is quite above and beyond human imagination. Last week, I read a verse of the Quran, which was chapter 7, verse 143, which says that Musa a.s., said to God that he wanted to see him. He wanted to see God. And God said to him, "You cannot see me. But if you look at that mountain in front of you, I will project my glory on it. And if the mountain remains in place, then you will see me." But the verse says that when God manifested his glory on that mountain, the mountain crumbled, being unable to withstand the glory of God. And Moses fainted. Of course, Moses was shown this in a vision. No actual mountain was made to crumble. Otherwise, many people would have seen it in a crumbled state afterwards. And many interpreters of the Holy Quran, including Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Sahib, have written that what Musa alayhi salam was shown in a vision was that the mountain of difficulties in his way would be removed by the support and power of God, and that such great power of God would be seen by people, such a great power, that they would, as it were, faint. What God informed Moses by this incident was that God cannot be seen by the human eye, so that people come to believe in him by actually seeing him. But instead, God performs such works in the support of his messengers by showing his power to remove worldly obstacles, that it is like making a mountain crumble into dust. That is why the same verse goes on to say that when Moses recovered from his fainting, he said to God, Subhanallah, glory be to you, or Subhanaka, I should say, glory be to you. I am the first of the believers, Awwalul Mu'mineen. And first here means to excel everyone else in being a believer, not just first in time, but excelling everyone and having the highest belief of all. In the verse which I recited at the beginning, in its opening words, which are, vision cannot comprehend him, and he comprehends, he is Allah here, he comprehends all vision. What is meant by comprehend is to have full, complete and entire knowledge about something, to bring something fully within your scope. And the vision mentioned here, vision cannot comprehend him, is both the physical human eye and the eye of the human mind. That eye with which we visualize things in our imagination. So, neither with the physical eyes nor with the mental eyes can a human acquire full knowledge of what is God. And Hazrat Abu Bakr, Raziyallahu Ta'ala anhu, he addressed God as follows. He said to God, addressing him, you are the one that the fullest knowledge that we can have about you still falls short of being full knowledge. Now, as regards the physical eye of human beings, it is very limited in what it can see even in the physical world. This eye can only see things which send visible light towards it. Scientific discoveries of the past 2 centuries show us, and therefore it has become common knowledge, that this light which our eyes see is only a small segment of the types of radiations that exist. We know that the eye can't see in the dark, and that's because things are not sending any light towards our eyes. But now we know that those same things are sending out other types of radiations that can be detected. So, using an infrared camera, we can see things in the dark by detecting the infrared radiation being given off by various objects. And as science has progressed, it has discovered how extremely limited is the human eye as regards the range of things which it can see. So how could it then possibly see God? Moreover, if God could be seen with the human eye, it would mean that God is of a certain size and dimensions, and he is in a certain place, if you could see him with the eye. But God cannot be limited in that way. Similarly, God cannot be envisioned, brought into vision by our mind's eye or by our imagination. Because what we can imagine is limited by our own past experiences. When we imagine things in our minds, for example, we might imagine what the world will be like in 100 years' time. What new inventions will be in use then? When we imagine that, our imagination is only based on the real things that we already know about, and our imagination projects them further. So we cannot visualize in our minds what God is, because our imagination cannot take us beyond its own limitations. Now, all those things, all those personalities and objects which have been taken as partners with God, such as those who are believed to be sons of God or God-like figures who appeared on earth, they could all be seen by the eyes of humans when they were in this world. They could all be seen. And even now, there are paintings and pictures of them that have been drawn. So human imagination and the mind's eye can also visualize them. But human imagination cannot visualize God. So if there is something you can visualize, it cannot be God. And this verse then tells us that while human vision cannot comprehend God, he comprehends human vision. In other words, God knows fully how human vision works, whether it is through man's physical eye or his mental eye, and he knows what are its limitations. Now, to give here an example of God, what God knows and what man doesn't know, a baby, an infant, doesn't know or understand fully what its parents do, where they go to work, why they go to work, why do parents do certain things like shopping, etc. The baby cannot comprehend that. On the other hand, parents know fully what the baby's needs and limitations are and how to fulfill them. So this example shows the respective position of man and God, that man's vision cannot reach him, cannot reach God, but God can reach all vision. Now this verse ends with the words, he is the knower of subtleties, the aware. And that in Arabic is, Allah is Latif and Khabir. The word Latif indicates one who knows the finer and most subtle points of knowledge, and also one who deals gently with people. If the concepts conveyed in the Quran were, as it is alleged, simplistic, lacking refinement, appealing only to the low-thinking worldly people, then the Quran would have presented Allah only as being all-powerful, almighty, overawing, before whose great power nothing can stand, and who can do anything. Because that is the kind of picture that simple minds can easily understand. To the simple mind, a great being is one who wields powerful authority, and he has force over people, compelling them to do whatever he wants. So a simplistic scripture would not be presenting God, as the Quran does, as one who has knowledge of subtle matters and who can do things in a subtle and refined way, not only using his outward power, but in a subtle, unseen way. And here Allah is also called Khabir. Now, Khabir means one who is aware of things. As you know, Allah is often called Alim or Alim in the Quran, meaning that he possesses knowledge of all things. Now, Alim and Alim on the one hand, and Khabir on the other hand, convey somewhat differing meanings. Alim or Alim means one who possesses knowledge. That is obvious. Khabir refers to knowledge about the underlying reality of things and about obtaining the latest knowledge as appears in the world, like knowing the latest news. As you know, news are called khabar, the latest happening, and Allah is Khabir. For example, the Holy Quran says many times, Wallahu bima tamaluna khabir. Allah is aware, Khabir, of what you do, what people do. Now, before we do something, it is in the knowledge, it is in the ilm of Allah. But when we actually do it, it then becomes the latest news, so to speak. It becomes actual news. And Allah is then aware of it, Khabir. So you see, the Quran uses different words about Allah to convey different aspects of his attributes, which are related to the same basic thing. In this case, that basic thing is knowledge. So the Quran uses different words, Alim, Alim, Khabir. Now, if, God forbid, the Quran was the work of an uneducated, simple-minded person, and the Quran was meant only for people who don't have much intelligence or capacity for deep thought, if that was true, then the Quran could not be making these fine and subtle distinctions between two things which are very similar on the face of it, but which do have a meaningful difference. And you will have seen perhaps sometimes puzzles or intelligence tests where you're shown two figures, two scenes, and there's a very slight difference between them. And in the intelligence test, you have to tell what is that very slight difference. And being able to tell that difference is a sign of intelligence. So here we have Allah's attribute of having knowledge, and the Holy Quran says that there are slightly differing aspects of it. And lastly, the second verse which I recited at the beginning, I recited it in full. It contains within it 4 words saying about Allah, nothing is like him. Nothing is like him. Laysa kamislihi shay'un. And although translated as nothing is like him, the words literally say, nothing is like a likeness of him. Nothing is like a likeness of him. And this means that firstly, nothing in this world is like God as such. And secondly, that nothing possesses any quality or attribute which is like the same attribute of Allah. And to expand on this second meaning, Allah has many attributes, such as the creator, possessing knowledge, the seer, the hearer. Now, human beings also create things, possess knowledge, and they see and hear with their eyes and ears. They do the same thing. But these human powers and faculties have no comparison to the same attributes of God. So in just these 4 words, nothing is like him. Laysa kamislihi shay'un. The Holy Quran has cleared the wrong beliefs which were widespread in the world at the time when the Quran was revealed, and which are still held by large sections of humanity. The beliefs that some person in the past was God, who had come into the world as a human being, and whose knowledge of the unseen matters was the same as God's knowledge. So, and in that second verse which I recited, before it says nothing is like him, that verse says, as I read at the beginning, he has made for you pairs from among yourselves, and pairs, of course pairs is male and female, and pairs of the cattle also, multiplying you thereby. In other words, that's how species propagate. And what it means is that the creation of God cannot be God or like God, because any such creation, like human beings, is created from its own kind. So it can only be a part of the same kind. That is why a human being could not have been God, or could not have been some part of God, because he would have been born of human beings. And if he is divine, then so would they have been. So may Allah enable us to learn the deep knowledge contained in the Holy Quran and convey it to others. Ameen. Barakallahu lana wa lakum fil Quran al-Azim wa nafa'na wa iyyakum bil ayati wa zikril hakim. Innahu ta'ala Yuadun Karimun Malikun Bararuru Rahim.